Well, thank you everybody for joining us today for our industry update. I know this is the third time you're joining us this week, but we appreciate you getting on the line with us. Please be sure to mute all your phone lines, your computers during the presentation, and use the chat feature only to ask questions. With that, I'm going to turn this over to John Longstreet to open it up.
Thank you, Hope, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to this week's webinar. And as always, thank you, Melissa, for your diligence in helping to gather information to help our industry. Let me remind you that the webinar today is designed for the benefit of hotels and restaurants and our travel and tourism partners, and of course our allied members, and is off the record. It's not designed for the press. As you undoubtedly know, we do hundreds of press interviews and are happy to do those at any time about the situation with COVID-19 in our industry. However, this is not one of those sessions. So if you're with the press and happen to be logged in, please log out at this time. Again, thank you for being here today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Melissa.
Hi, everyone. Here we are again, and things keep on changing. So thank you for those of you who attended the webinar on Monday. We did a deep dive with as much information as we had on Monday. I don't have too much new information, but we're going to go over all of that today, and I will be happy to go through questions once again, as we have in the past. So I think we're going to jump in right away with federal stuff, because we are working on that much needed, more than ever, COVID package, that COVID 4 package that we are relying on, I think, more than any other relief effort to try and help us get through this. I went over last week, we had received the National Restaurant Association's priorities to be included in this package. We've since received AHLA's and US Travel's legislative priorities. There is crossover, as there should be, between the hospitality and tourism industry. So that's a good sign. In a lot of ways, everybody's on the same page. So I'm going to overview briefly general priorities. Overarching amongst all of them is a need for just revenue, just grant money to be given in addition to the P3. P3 expansion is part of it. P3 in terms of allowing people to go back to get a second run at the P3, allowing 501c6s and travel and tourism entities to apply for the P3, but universally and much needed across all three of these packages is liability protection, which, as we keep on saying and keep on banging the drum on, everything we achieve doesn't do anything if we don't have that liability protection. So generally, I'm going to go over the priorities of each association. I'm going to go over timing and then a few other items, just because I know I'm going to be asked the question and I like to preemptively answer questions. So as we discussed before, for restaurants, for the blueprint for restaurant revival, of what it's called, includes a restaurant recovery fund, allows for additional funding beyond the P3 in terms of a loan program in addition to other recovery funds. All three packages include that employee retention tax credit. If you drew down on the P3, you're not eligible for the ERTC. So all three packages from all three associations does include the ability to apply for the ERTC once you're done using your P3 loan. More funding for the EIDL is in there. The EIDL is running out of funding, and as people are looking for more revenue streams, we want more funding within the EIDL. Also, universally across all three packages are tax credits, and one of the biggest tax credits we're seeing across all three is a tax credit for all of the investments you have made to make your properties and your restaurants safe for your customers. You spend a lot of money. In a lot of ways, some of it you're not able to use right now, which is an additional rub in terms of everything that's going on. But customer and employee wellness tax credits are part of the ask across all three organizations. National Restaurant Association is asking for, and I believe AHLA as well, is that business interruption insurance. We will not get up on my horse about that again, but you all know how I feel about the insurance companies not providing business interruption insurance to you. All of that is part of that recovery package. AHLA has some different priorities, as they should. they are including, which is a huge issue for many of the hotels that are on here, the CMBS, which is the Commercial Mortgage-Backed Securities Relief Fund. Many of you who have those CMBS loans, they don't have the ability under federal government to actually give you the relief that normal mortgage companies and reasonable landlords are able to give their properties. So that is a huge part about the PRLA packages for that relief for all of you that are kind of trapped in those CMBS loans right now. In addition, Main Street lending, that was included in the previous CARES package, but many of you were not able to apply for it in the hotel industry. They're asking for an expansion of that to ensure that hotels can actually access the program. I think a lot of larger businesses outside of the hotel community pulled in a lot of those funds. Also, they are also supportive of all of the targeted tax provisions that would help all of you get through the other side. In addition, they are now crossing over to the U.S. travel space, and one of their asks is a travel tax credit to encourage people to travel and provide them a tax credit to travel, which I'm all about that one. For my U.S. travel friends, there's primarily my destination marketing organizations. They are focused, and we are all supportive of expanding the P3 to those 501c6s to tourism and travel organizations. U.S. Travel is asking for funding to be dedicated to the states that specifically goes to tourism promotion. That could trickle down to counties as well in terms of tourism promotion. So you would have funds that you don't have right now from your hotel taxes to start promoting your local communities. They're also looking for long-term relief. Everybody's looking for long-term relief. It's just, you remember when we had the P3 and they're like, the P3 is for 8 weeks because in 8 weeks we're going to be back to normal and that's all we need. And here we are in a terrible land where we aren't exactly sure when this is going to end. So U.S. Travel, along with PRLA and NRA, are asking for those longer term relief packages, those longer term loans and grants to help you through it. They are also pushing for that temporary travel tax credit, in addition to deductibility of food and entertainment business expenses. And I'm giving you all of this, also a meetings and events tax credit. And a lot of this, as you can imagine, is to encourage not only leisure travel, but that business travel, because I think we all recognize business travel is probably going to be one of the last to come back. So U.S. Travel is really focused on encouraging that. And I won't tell you, well, I will tell you because I can't read it and not tell you. They are asking for assistance to airports. So don't yell at the messenger. I know that the airlines got billions of dollars in bailouts, but the airports still need assistance. So they are, if you want travelers to come, they're usually coming through in some capacity an airport. So that is part of the U.S. travel platform. And I'm telling you all of this to create kind of an idea of how big this package is going to be. The goal here is to have something put together by the end of next week, which means that it will be the week after, because I have yet to see Congress hit a deadline. Even when they have unanimous consent, we're not hitting deadlines. There is not an agreement even within the Trump administration and the Republican Party. The Trump administration would like to keep it to $1 trillion. Your Democrats are looking at $3 trillion. Your Republicans are probably landing somewhere in the middle. So the details are all being worked out. At the end of the day, the focus unilaterally across all of these organizations is to get you the support that you need. The grant programs that we're seeing at the local level are a drop in the bucket for what you're going to need to get through this. And I think the federal government recognizes that. So as we work towards negotiations here, depending on what association you're a part of, and since you're part of the PRLA, you get updates on all of them, we will be asking you to reach out in terms of urging grassroots support, urging congressional support when we think that there is a package that is where we need to be. And that's usually a lot of behind the scenes work. And then we get told like, go, 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 because this is actually the package that includes a lot of the stuff that we need. So please stay tuned to the daily updates on that front. The $600. I know I'm going to get asked that question, so I'm just going to jump into it now. there's going to be some type of an extension of the $600 emergency unemployment. And that actually ends this weekend. It does not end July 31st. The last $600 payout is going to be this week. After that, that's where the negotiations are. Your congressional Democrats believe that the $600 should go until the end of the year for people that are collecting unemployment. Republicans think that there should be an extension, but $600 is probably too much because of what has been a growing frustration that a lot of people don't want to come back to work because they're making more money on unemployment. We're probably in Pennsylvania stuck a little bit in the middle of all of this because we are reduced to 25% capacity in our restaurants. We can't have bar service. Many of you have or are looking at probably putting some employees back on unemployment. So there is going to be some sort of expansion there. I can't tell you what that expansion is going to look like. There is talk of kind of what we're calling the reversal. So you might get $300 in extra unemployment insurance, but if you go back to work, you might get $400. So almost an incentive to return to work for employees. All of that are part of these discussions, and all of these will be taking place over the next week. And like I said, their goal is to have this done by the end of next week. They tentatively can be in session until August 7th. So I do think that we have to have something by August 7th. They have made it very clear this is the final package in terms of COVID and bailout for this year. They might come back again next year, but this is really our last chance to grasp as much of that funding as we can. So please stay tuned to the daily updates on that piece. EU tariffs. My restaurants, you probably remember this because this was like a headache a few months ago, and they're back. In our daily update today, there will be a call to action. The administration is once again looking at tariffs because of the Airbus dispute. It's an airline issue, but they're looking at tariffs on our industry in terms of resolving it. So they are proposing tariffs of up to 100% on alcohol products, food and alcohol products from the European Union and United Kingdom. And it's literally all of my favorite things and probably all of your favorite things. So seafood, cheese, dairy products, pasta, coffee, olives, olive oil, chocolate, potatoes, baked products, wine, sparkling wine, whiskey, beer, gin, brandy, and any other food product that essentially comes from the European Union. So those of you that are bringing in your alcohol from bringing European products because they have great products over there, they are once again looking at that 100% tariff. Don't ask me why they would be looking at tariffs on products that an industry that's the hardest hit in the entire country has to pay for. I, again, will not try to get into any administration's brains, but that is something they're considering. And the deadline for comments to push back on this is going to be this Sunday, the 26th. So please pay attention to the daily update today. If this is something that impacts you, once again, it's a quick take action. You can send in your comments about how you can't afford this. I know this was a huge issue before. Hopefully they will take a step back because, again, it's not right that our industry is targeted about an issue that we had nothing to do with. But government is a joy at times. So please pay attention to that. Like I said, that will be in the update today. What's next? State, yay. All right, here we are. They're not in session right now. This is, I think, the first week that I've been able to say the House and Senate aren't in session. They are on technically a summer recess. Usually when they're on a summer recess, they don't come back until September. Things might change on that front, specifically related to the actions from the governor towards our industry and other efforts by the legislature to address some of the decisions that were made, in addition to people are running for re-election and they want to get some bills moving sooner than later. So we have shared, I think it was in our update on Friday, our recovery items, and Steph just put it in the chat box. We put together last, I think it was Thursday, because I don't know time anymore. Thursday morning after the governor's announcement, we put together what we thought were things that our industry is going to need. And, you know, not that we should be in a crisis, but I will always take advantage of a crisis. And we started sharing this list immediately. I had a meeting yesterday with some leadership in the House to talk about a plan of action. So we're already working on that. I will go over some of the things that we're working on. The biggest one is going to be House Bill 2615. That's sponsored by Representative Todd Stevens, and that's a $250 million grant program for restaurants. Hotels and DMOs, don't yell at me, but if this one's just for restaurants, we're not forgetting you, but restaurants were hit pretty hard last week, and Representative Stevens is from Montgomery County, which was especially hit hard. So it's a grant program that eligible applicants can receive up to $50,000. It's for restaurants between 1 and 10 locations and less than 75 employees. The bill has been introduced. It might get tweaked as we move forward with it, but that is part of our recovery package. In addition, we are looking at, I know none of you need a loan, but some of you might need a loan because grants don't go on forever, interest-free loan options. We have legislation that will be introduced that will eliminate late fees and penalties if you have not been able to pay your sales tax, and would give you until the end of this year to catch up on paying your sales tax. Liability protection, that's your drinking game for the day. Every time I say liability protection, you can take a drink. That's part of our statewide recovery program. And also, of course, we have a whole slew of licensee provisions for our liquor licensees that we will be moving, hopefully, as part of a larger package as well. So this is a moving list. It's going to be updated as we go along, but I'm going to tell you right now, there are some things that we're going to need you to do. And generally, our problem right now is you can get every Republican in the House and Senate to vote for any of these pieces of legislation. Your Democrats, I mean, you have parties for a reason, you know, they're united, and you're not going to get a Democrat to overturn any of the vetoes as it pertains to taking away the governor's emergency power. You're not going to get enough Democrats to do that. Any of those kind of unilateral taking away the governor's power, we're not going to get support, I think, from that side of the aisle. But we will get support, and we're starting to see support from some of these recovery provisions because they do recognize that we are under attack and we need help. This is not going to be one of those, you send a form email. This is going to be one of those, I'm going to provide you everyone's email address and all of their phone numbers. And even if it's a 2-sentence email, we need you to start reaching out when I tell you to, once we get the packages together, and asking for support and telling them why it's important. Form emails are great, but at the end of the day, we need them to hear directly from their constituents. And form emails can come from somebody who isn't a constituent. So if we really target this, we will get that groundswell of support that we need to get a lot of these things across the finish line within the legislature. So please, I know Steph put it up, take a look at that list, and we will continue to let you know when we're going to flip the switch in terms of that grassroots action. I could let you all do it now, but without us having a platform and without me having specific bills and packages for people to support, it's not going to go as far. So bear with me until I can get that information to all of you, and we will need your help when this happens. This is why other groups are so proactive. If you looked at what the realtors did when they couldn't operate, I mean, they moved the needle on that, and that's because they made calls, sent emails, and engaged, and that's what our industry is going to need to do as well. Let's get to the whole reason you guys are on this call. Reopening or closing, we might need to change that title, I'm not sure. We're in, for one of our members, I think we're calling this the puke stage of reopening, or like the mix between yellow and green, or wherever we are, but we are where we are. I'm going to go over a brief overview of the restrictions that came out previously. I did do a deep dive, like I said, about this on Monday, so I will not do a deep dive today, but I will certainly answer questions as they come up. Generally, what we know and what was issued last week, and I know you had 8.5 hours warning. We didn't have much more warning than you did. I think many of you who were on the call last week felt my pain during that call, but generally, indoor dining is reduced to 25%. Bar service is not permitted. People cannot sit at the bar. They cannot go up to the bar inside and get a drink. If you are a restaurant, they can't go up to the bar outside and get a drink. They need to get a meal with their food, or a meal with their food. Ha ha ha. They need, if they want to have a drink, they have to get a meal. And they did pull, for all of my friends who are liquor nerds, and remember when we had the brunch food requirement, they pulled that definition of what is considered a meal. So if I come in and I want to have a beer, I need to order a meal, which is food prepared on the premises, sufficient to constitute breakfast, lunch, or dinner. It shall not mean a snack, such as pretzels, popcorn, chips, or similar food. So if you are one of those who giving people a bag of chips, a bag of Utz potato chips, and saying this is your meal, that's not going to fly under the current guidance. There is no limit once they get a meal of how many drinks they can have. So you will catch COVID if you just have a beer. You will not catch COVID if you get chicken fingers and have 5 beers. I don't make the rules. I'm just telling you what they say. Further, for events, you are down to 25 indoors at an event. So those are for my weddings, caterers, even for my restaurants. If you are having a rehearsal dinner, you can't have more than 25 people in a single party. Further to that, this was something I think people were trying to get a little tricky about. You cannot use your 25% occupancy as a restaurant to override the 25-person limit. So if you have a 200-person restaurant and your occupancy is 50, you can't say, okay, I can have a wedding for 50 people. 25 is the limit for a group of people, wedding or that. Also, in terms of that, you still have to have your social distancing, super easy at 25%. Outdoors, your number is 250. I will talk about Allegheny County and Philadelphia in a second. I haven't forgotten about you. 250 is your outdoor number for outdoor events. I didn't make the rules, clearly, because I would have made them not so terrible. But you are, if it is a private event, people can go up to a bar and get their drink at a private event. If you are a restaurant and you have an outdoor bar that serves the public, they are not allowed to do so. That bar has to remain closed. Further, butts need to be in seats, as I so affectionately call it, if anybody is consuming food or beverage. That is universal. So if you are a wedding and you are outdoors and somebody goes and gets their beer at the outdoor bar, they can only consume it at their seat. They can't take it to the dance floor. Dance floors are permitted. They can't take it to the dance floor or walk around with it. They have to be seated at all times when they are consuming their food and beverage. My food truck friends, we are still awaiting guidance, but from what I have been told, in terms of your operations as it pertains to being on breweries, distilleries, or wineries, the rules say that the food and drink have to be in the same transaction. The Department of Health came up with these guidelines. I think it's our 4th department to develop guidelines, but they have said that you are allowed to have separate transactions as long as you prove you got a meal. That could be via a receipt. That could be via a ticket or something that the food truck gives to the customer so that when they go and do their wine tasting, they can show that they got a meal. So there has to be proof they got a meal. There is not a hard line in terms of it needing to be in the same transaction. For Philadelphia and Allegheny County, I'll get that to a second. I'll go to those differences since I seem to have those are on the PowerPoint. We are waiting for additional guidance from the LCB. We've been told that they're going to create a new advisory notice. I think the last one was advisory notice number 26. This would be number 27 to reflect any additional clarifications and changes. Yes, the order was made a week ago. No, we don't have that. Yes, are they enforcing? No, I don't know why, when they don't have the actual final guidance, but I'm not in charge. But we should receive that guidance today from the LCB, which means maybe tomorrow. But as soon as we get it, we will get it out to you. I know they have finalized it. I know they're working on it. I'm not sure how inherently different it is going to be from the FAQs we got from the Department of Health. But if there are any differences or clarifications, we will get that out there to all of you. On top of this, if this hasn't been put up yet, we have started a petition. And Steph, who is our communications director, and I actually hate petitions. We think they're terrible unless it can be used to our benefit. So the petition that we're doing right now is just basically saying our industry is under attack and requesting that we return to normal. As I mentioned before, it's kind of sad that, you know, at 50%, we were like, this is shenanigans, and now we're pining to go back to 50%. With that being said, we need your help to get the petition out there. It says restaurants. And I know that there are all kinds of people in the industry, and there's a reason we did restaurants, because one, this is not only just for all of you, it's for the general public. And if I tried to do a petition that would appeal to everybody, that petition would be about 8 pages longer, because I would need to say restaurants, catering facilities, bars, nightclubs, wineries, distilleries, breweries, clubs, hotels. Restaurant, since many of you are operating within that restaurant license, within that sphere, and John Smith on the street, when you tell him that his favorite restaurant is suffering, is going to respond to that. So don't take this as a petition that is not inclusive of all of you. It is the petition that we're going to be using to get our foot in the door to get change for all of you. So don't take that literally. I know we've gotten some feedback on that front. It's really because we wanted something clean, straightforward, that you could circulate and we could get signatures on. We're using this petition in a few ways. One, just numbers. I think we're about at 10,000 signatures right now. I have a goal of 100,000, and I know you all will help me get there. But we're using a platform that will tie everybody who signs it to their legislator. So we'll actually be able to use those numbers to encourage votes, especially with some of our Democratic colleagues that might not want to always put up a vote. If we can show them, here are 5,000 people that are in your district that care about this and say that this is shenanigans and our industry should not be targeted. And that will help us encourage the votes. And I think that's going to help us put pressure on the governor to reverse this. He is lame duck. And that's not an insult. That is what we call people who are not up for re-election. So the pressure to get change here is going to have to come from his colleagues. And it's going to have to come from his colleagues in the Democratic caucus, which is why this petition is going to be so important for us to do that. Beyond that, for Allegheny County did align somewhat with the state. They still have some of their own rules. Generally, you have to stop service for on-premise dining at 11 p.m. in Allegheny County, and they have an outdoor limit of 50 people. So while the other parts of the state have 250, Allegheny County, for your outdoor weddings and events, are capped at 50 people right now. But in Allegheny County, that 3-drink limit is gone. You can now have 5 beers with your chicken fingers in Allegheny County as long as you get chicken fingers. In Philadelphia, same thing. We've got a lot of Philadelphia questions on Monday. I feel like it's last week. We will be doing a specific webinar with officials from Philadelphia. So please stay tuned for that. We will be getting that scheduled. Philadelphia is 25 indoors, 50 outdoors. Some of you on this call have emailed me and asked my thoughts on Philadelphia for August 1st in terms of allowing indoor dining. I'm not going to say the odds are in our favor. I think that Philadelphia could allow 25% indoors. I don't know if they will. Dr. Farley in Philadelphia has been very clear that if the numbers don't go down, they're not going to allow other things to reopen. Don't ask me why they allowed gyms to reopen. Another question I don't know the answer to. But the way the counts are looking in Philadelphia, I'm not entirely optimistic we're gonna see a change on August 1st. I am continuing to talk to them. I'm continuing to push for them to shut down the bad actors so we can get there, but I don't have an answer that's positive that I can say with authority right now that it's going to happen on August 1st. A few things I want to talk about. One is what I refer to as the rumor mill. There is a website. It's called, they call themselves Breaking News PA. They are run, it's kind of a conservative blog I think the person who writes for it is founded by some 20-year-olds or 24-year-olds in terms of trying to put pressure on the governor. And they put up a post saying that there were counties that were going to go back to red this week. That is not true. It wasn't they aren't even a news source of any kind, but that sucker got shared tens of thousands of times around the state. And I received more text messages and phone calls than I think I wanted to over the weekend in response to it. I cannot predict what the governor is going to do. He and the Secretary of Health have said that if they do anything, it's going to be very targeted. And I do not see any county going from puke color right now all the way back to red. I don't see it. I don't think the counts are high enough for it. If anything, they'd go back to yellow, and I think there'd be a lot of pushback on that front too. So as you hear the rumor mills going, I mean, check a credible news source, because if the credible news sources aren't listing it, there's just so many blogs out there that's causing a lot of hype and a lot of drama. And so please double check that and don't take anything you read for granted. There have been no announcements. I have not gotten whispers. Usually I get whispers ahead of time when something is coming. I've not gotten one yet. But obviously if anything changes, we will let you know. The count yesterday was above 1,000. Every time our daily counts are above 1,000, I twitch a little bit. But that's where we are right now. So I do want to address that. One other thing I want to address, don't get mad at me because I'm still getting clarification. We think that there might be some confusion with health inspectors in terms of, wait, hold on, let me see if I just got an answer. I didn't get the answer. Okay. There's been some issues in terms of Department of Ag in terms of inspecting, and that we think that when they saw the word bar, they were applying it to salad bars and buffets and telling some restaurants or operations you could not have salad bars or buffets. I am not sure. I mean, I've reached out to the governor's office and I said, are buffets permitted? And they didn't say that they were not. And the guidance currently allows buffets to be permitted in the green phase, and we're not in yellow, but we think that there is some confusion there. So the governor's office has reached out to the Department of Ag to clarify that and make sure that they are aware of the rules. I think we're fine on the buffet front, but I'm just warning you that there seems to be some confusion there that we're working to clarify right now, and that will go in the daily update as soon as we get that official clarification. I think we are on to the I think that's all the updates I have for right now, because I know I'm going to have a slew of questions, and I'm going to say this because I've watched some of the chatter. I am not going to get into the politics or the bashing of anything. So if you put something in the chat box that's bashing of anyone, I'm not going to reread it. We are not here to bash anyone. We're here to provide you factual information of what we know and what you need to know in this current state of affairs. So I'm warning you right now, I'm tired and I'm not going down that rabbit hole. In terms of enforcement, continuing our push, which was all along of the shutting down of the bad actors. This was up on last week's blog or last week's webinar. We have up here all of the complaint forms, which I know that Ben and Steph, between the two of them, will put up here. So if you know somebody who's not operating correctly, please turn them in. We are continuing to ask the warnings to stop. I do think that there's only going to be one warning before a shutdown occurs in some places. So if you aren't following the rules, please make sure that you're compliant enough that you only get a warning at this point in time. But we do have the state up there in Philadelphia and Allegheny. And if you have your own health department, please check. They probably have a complaint form as well in terms of issues. Generally, I've been asked this before in terms of enforcement. If you have a liquor license, BLCE is your primary enforcer. If you don't have a liquor license, Department of Ag is going to be your primary enforcer. In terms of your local health departments, they will universally enforce liquor license establishments and non-liquor license establishments. But what we've seen is a split between LCE and Department of Ag right now. And I think I get to chip it over right now to Hope so I can chug some coffee and then take questions.
Great, thank you. Wanted to just point out some training solutions and some affiliated programs that are available that you could be looking into. As always, our SureSafe Manager certification classes are up and running. We have our schedule on our website. You can register straight through the calendar of events. We do have a full schedule through December. Please remember, with social distancing, we are having lower, we're under 25 people in the classes, so be sure to sign up and get into the class. You know, you do need to get your certification re-upped for if you did expire during COVID and if you're looking to expire soon. Also, in conjunction, a great compliment to the Restaurant Promise and the Hotel Promise are two programs that our national affiliates have put out. They are industry enhanced standards of health and safety protocols. They are designed with CDC guidance and FDA reopening guidance in mind. They are both have training components with them where you can have your staff train either on the hotel side or on the restaurant side with food handlers and the serve safe managers. Underneath the Hotel Promise and Restaurant Promise on our website are the details on how to get signed up for these programs. They do provide you with great marketing kits, digital kits, postcards, and decals that you can put out onto your storefronts to show the public that you are enhancing your training, enhancing your cleaning standards within your organization. And then, Eric, if you can go to the next slide, I'll talk about the webinars coming up. There are two webinars coming up tomorrow that are hosted by the National Restaurant Association. I would say to I think you should sign up for them. You will get recordings if you cannot sit through them. The first one is Epstein, Becker, and Green will be presenting. They're going to be discussing various employment issues that you can have if not handled right that can lead to litigation under a variety of federal, state, and local employment laws. So it is an important consideration as we reopen our businesses. The other one is with Sean Kennedy. He's with the National Restaurant Association. He'll be giving an overview of the blueprint released recently on July 15th, which is helping the lawmakers craft the next COVID package. So it is a plan for short-term restaurant survival and long-term industry recovery. So definitely tune into those. We will be back next week with Melissa. And then we are going to be hosting two additional webinars, one on the 30th, one on August 6th. The one on the 30th, Tom Duffy with Kent Law Group will be talking about accessing additional capital that can be embedded in your current leases to help you during this time of recovery. And then the week after that, we will be talking with Greg Peters. He's going to be helping with some ideas on how to keep yourself connected during this with your networks, even though you cannot be in front of people. So just helping you keep your networks in place and keeping yourself connected with the people you need to be connected to help you with your businesses. These webinars will be up on our page for you to register for. And then as always, you will get a recording afterwards with all of them if you aren't able to attend. And with that, I'm going to chip it back to you, Melissa. I hope you had some time to look through those questions.
I was talking, I was muted. I don't always look at them ahead of time because I don't want to overthink. So we'll go through them one by one and I will skip over those that are not helpful. I was told by one of our food suppliers that August 1st, we moved to 10% or possible red if the numbers keep rising as they are now. There's no announcement or, like I said before, any expectation right now that we're going back to yellow or red. Obviously, if a county goes back to yellow, that would happen first before we go back to red. And I don't think there's a move for that right now. I think that there could be an actual giant uprising if there is a pushback to that extent. So we will continue to watch the numbers and we just need them to go down. And they should be up in about 20 minutes and fingers crossed. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays are my scary days because that's when they play the catch up from the private testing sites from over the weekend or the week before. So let's just hope that the numbers do not rise. And in comparison to other states, I think we're doing pretty kick butt, but I'm not the doctor. So, but we just need the numbers to stay down. Thank you, Steph, for putting up the legislative recoveries. I'm ignoring that. I think Ben answered. The recording will be emailed out and it will be posted on our website as well. Okay, 25 for church bingo indoors. Yes, any type of private event like that would be 25. And to be honest, this is just kind of an anecdotal thing, but they even apply that to movie theaters. So a movie theater can't have more than 25 people in the theater. I don't get it. But yes, your limit is going to be 25 for any type of gathering like that, because that would be considered an event under the guidelines, which triggers the indoor 25-person limit. And yes, thank you, Mike. I met, this was in the back of my brain and I forgot to mention it. The numbers that I've stated, the 25 indoor, 250 outdoor, 50 outdoor for Allegheny or Philadelphia, or 25%, whatever it is that you need to follow depending on what you're doing, that is inclusive of staff. It's beating hearts, I think is what I used the other day. So that does need to include staff, all of those counts. In Philadelphia, please confirm that we can have 25 people at an event function and they can eat, drink at that function seated. Confirming that the restaurant indoor restriction does not apply to private functions, meeting, weddings, social gatherings. The restriction in Philadelphia, the indoor gathering, does apply to any type of food or beverage service. We can double check that. But last conversations we had is that there can be no indoor food and beverage service for any event whatsoever. Now, if somebody's had another conversation with the Philadelphia Department of Health since then, please let me know. But for Philadelphia, there is still a ban on any indoor service whatsoever. So you would only be looking at an outdoor event in Philadelphia until they allow indoor dining of some capacity. Melissa, can a social club remain open if they have a catering license and serve food? They normally do have a menu available with actual food, not snacks. Yes, a social club can. Now we are waiting. Let me see if I have it. For the definition of nightclub, which was still not entirely helpful. Let me see. As long as they don't fall under the nightclub definition, which is the definition under Clean Indoor Air Act, which is defined as a public hall or hall for which admission is generally charged and which is primarily or predominantly devoted to dancing or to shows or cabarets, as opposed to a facility that is primarily a bar, tavern, or dining facility. So I would say, Lisa, in that scenario, a social club is not, if they don't have dancing and things like that, it's probably primarily operating as a bar. If they have food, that would be permitted. Do you know any information regarding the educational guidance with regards to colleges asking to use venue space for classrooms and count guidelines? Do they have to stick to the 25-person indoors as an educational session, or can they have more people due to educational? I understand they still need to social distance, masks, etc. If there is guidelines in terms of education, and I'm not sure if the actual guidelines apply to if they're using it at your facility. I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to go through it, but there is something specifically as it relates to education on this, but we can follow up on that because there is an exemption for education. I'm not sure if there's an exemption for education being used within a hotel facility. We would need to double check that, Kelly. I think I just heard that private functions can have a standalone bar and guests can purchase beverages at that bar as opposed to having drinks served at their seats. Is this correct? I work in a full service hotel and we do put portable bars into function rooms for private events. There would be food served at the event. Just wanted to clarify how liquor service can occur. Hold on, I'm going to bring that one up. Okay, for outdoor weddings and similar outdoor private events, attendees may be served alcohol at a bar, but must have an available seat where a meal is being served. For indoor weddings and private events, complying with the 25-person limitation, table service is required. So for an indoor private event under the Department of Health's order, you cannot allow them to go up to the bar and get a drink. It has to be table service. If it's an outdoor event, they can go up to the bar and get a cocktail. Don't ask me to explain it. I'm just reading it directly from the order in and of itself. Okay, let's see. 50 people is the limit for Philadelphia for outside events. So for private outside events, weddings, rehearsal dinners, graduation parties, 50 people is your limit. The 250 limit is for every county except Philadelphia and Allegheny County. Sorry, Eric. And I think, Eric, your hotels are in Philadelphia and Allegheny, so it doesn't look good. Yes, the petition will be, it's actually already on social media, I believe, and I think it's probably being posted in here as well. So yes, it is available, and please share it with friends, family, and everyone in between. Thank you, Crystal, for the kind note. To clarify, the ID scanner for cocktails to go, is the BCS scanner app qualify? Yes, all the law says is that you need a transaction scan device. It doesn't say if it has to be a standalone. It doesn't say that there's anything it can't be. You just need a transaction scan device. And I do know that we have some that are on our website that we've gotten some discounts for. So definitely check those out if you haven't gotten it yet. You did need to if you're still doing cocktails to go, you need to have that transaction scan device now. But there is no definition in terms of what that needs to look like, just that you need to have it, and you needed to get it within 60 days, which was earlier this week. Oh, I got to like the fun messaging part of this. Thank you, everybody, for the kind words. Steph put up some training solutions. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Jack. Wow, this is, wow. Thanks, guys. Let's see. Has PRLA spoken with Toomey on the COVID-4 stimulus? You might be able to add, governors must work with the state legislators with votes by legislators to enact COVID rules. No COVID-4 if you don't work with them. You get the idea. We have had numerous, we're very close with Senator Toomey's office. We've had numerous conversations. I provided them background last week of you know, where the guidance was and the announcement that happened yesterday. I don't know if that's something that will fly in terms of a COVID-4 package, but I can tell you that he is very focused on helping the industry in terms of meaningful, well thought out, based on science guidance, as opposed to, I think, some of the guidance that was released last week, which is not based on science. Guys, you guys are making me cry. Thank you, everyone, for the awesome comments. Let's see. And it does include does it include back of the house staff, the 25% occupancy, or just front of the house? If your occupancy, your fire code it's usually your fire code is not going to be based on back of the house. It's going to be based on the part that is inclusive of the public. So your back of the house employees would not count for that. Your servers, your bartenders, your hostess and hosts, they would all count as part of it. Back of the house, as long as that is not included in the entirety of your fire code occupancy, would not be part of that count. Movie theater, yeah, Jean, it's kind of funny that they like added a specific movie theater comment, just to confirm that movie theater limited to 25 people. So movie theaters can have 50% occupancy total, but no more than 25 bodies per each individual theater. And that one I didn't know until earlier this week. So that's a movie theater fun fact for all of you. Also, for room service at hotels, would that be required to include a meal, or could guests get drinks for their room? I've gone left, right, and in between on this. Room service, and this goes all the way back to when we were in red. Room service was always considered to be takeout because essentially the room that person is occupying is their home for that night or nights that they are staying there. So in terms of them getting cocktails or wine or beer, that would all fall under the to-go provisions, and the meal requirement is not triggered for that. The meal requirement would be triggered if they went down to to sit at a table, not the bar, sit at a table and say, I want a beer. But if they're just ordering it to their room, that would be considered takeout, and the meal requirement would not be triggered in that scenario. Our Philadelphia restaurant is allowed to have 25 guests for food and beverage. Is it only private events not allowed to have food and beverage indoors? No indoor service whatsoever in Philadelphia. You cannot have any event, any food or beverage service inside any entity in the city of Philadelphia. So we're hoping that will change on August 1st. I'm not holding my breath, but we're certainly hoping it will change, and they will allow for some of that indoor service, because I know how necessary and needed it is. But it's universal. The ban on indoor is universal in Philadelphia. Thank you, Allison. I don't sleep much in the last week, but I'm going to work on it. If a religious group decides to modify their already booked conference to just include their daily church service, would that qualify the hotel's ballroom as a house of worship and therefore fall under those guidelines and restrictions? Kate, yes. If it is purely a religious gathering and they are not having food and beverage afterwards, unless it's part of the ceremony. I mean, some religions do have, obviously, you know, we won't get all religious, but there is consumption as part of the ceremony, usually not something that hotel provides. But if they are having a daily church service, that would fall under the religious exemption. For my tricky wedding planners, just because a ceremony is a religious event does not mean that the reception is a religious event and would fall under that exemption. I've heard that so many times. That one doesn't work. But Kate, in that scenario, we've heard a lot of churches don't have the capacity for the social distancing that they need, and they are using hotel ballrooms. And for those religious services, that would be permitted. No, Diane, I do not want to run for office. I think, if anything, these last 4.5 months have made me want to reconsider my career path at this point in time. Thank you, Sue, for the note. You guys are really making me feel like a lot better today, so thank you. Has any progress been made related to de-escalation training for frontline staff? Hope, I think we were going to maybe look into a webinar on that front. I'm not sure where we ended with that, but Tim, yeah, I think that came up on last week's webinar.
I have been looking into it. I'm still trying to identify if anybody is available for training. So I'll let you know.
But yes, I think that would be very helpful to everybody. So we will continue to look for that. Okay, any new posters for our front doors in the vein of no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service, but stating that, you know, mask, no seat, no meal, no drink, that will help set customers' expectations and help the front of the house staff. We have not done a poster, and to be honest, I've seen some really funny posters on Facebook that people have created on their own, which I wouldn't even try to compete with. We can look into creating a poster at this point, but like I said, I think a lot of people have already gone down a very creative path in terms of that on social media. But Bob, yeah, we can look into that. No F&B inside in Philadelphia for private events at this time. It was just mentioned that there's no bar service permitted for inside events. Is this predicted to be the case still when F&B is permitted for indoor private events? Well, the no bar service applies in Philadelphia and across the state. And in 66 counties, there can be inside private events, and they still cannot have bar service. So if Philadelphia on August 1st changes their rules and allows inside events maybe of 25 people, this state ban on bar service would still trump. So you still would not be able to have bar service for inside events in Philadelphia. Essentially, that's why Allegheny County did align much better with this, because the vein is that if you have two different orders, and then we have the state and then we have Philadelphia and Allegheny, when you compare the two, whatever's more restrictive is what you need to follow. So in Philadelphia, you can't have indoor dining, so that is what you follow. And then in Philadelphia, before you could have a drink without food, but now you need to follow the state and get your chicken fingers with your beer. So it's the more restrictive. So if next week Philadelphia says indoor dining can happen at 25% and 25 people, the bar service ban would still continue. Let's see. Thank you, Kate. And Ken, I think we just touched upon that. We will find a way to do a webinar in terms of getting the de-escalation and how to handle customers who are not wearing masks. I know that is a huge headache for all of you right now. Thank you, Jennifer. You guys must have been feeling like my stress and also defending me against certain trolls. Let's see. Dominic. Dominic sending me a virtual hug and glass of wine from the Southeast. Thank you. Let's see. We've changed our mask wearing sign 5 times in the past 6 weeks. With Walmart mandating masks, it might help our cause. Yes, I think that as we're starting to see some of these larger businesses that weren't really enforcing all of a sudden jump on board, I think it's going to help change the culture, because I think we all recognize that this is a culture change and a culture thing. So I do hope that moves the needle for all of you, because I know, and John and I struggle. Sometimes John's more strict about it, and sometimes I'm more strict about it in terms of the mask requirement, but it has to happen. You have to protect your employees. We're seeing all of these Facebook groups now that are, going after restaurants that aren't enforcing it and venues that aren't enforcing the mask rules. So your best bet is to draw a hard line there. And I, on a personal note, it's been a really rough week. So thank all of you for your kind words. So I think with that, we are good.
I think we are, Melissa. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Melissa and John, and thank you for all the wonderful notes. Have a great week.
Stay safe, everyone.